I can still hear the clinking of glasses and forced laughter from that Thanksgiving dinner. The crystal chandelier in my parents' dining room cast shadows across faces that hadn't bothered to visit my cafe in over 3 years, despite it being just 4 blocks away from the family's law firm. Emma, my sister Sophia's voice cut through the polite dinner conversation. Tell everyone your big news. I looked up from my plate, already knowing what was coming. Sophia sat there in her designer suit, diamond engagement ring catching the light as she reached for her wine glass. She had that look, the one that said she was about to remind everyone why she was the family's crown jewel. I made senior partner, she announced, her smile dazzling. Youngest in the firm's history. The table erupted in excitement. Mom practically glowed with pride. Dad raised his glass in a toast. To Sophia Harrison, carrying on the Harrison and Associates legacy. I took a small sip of my wine, thinking about the stack of contracts waiting on my desk at home. But of course, nobody here knew about those. To them, I was just the family disappointment who played cafe owner instead of joining the prestigious family law firm. And what about you, Emma? Aunt Patricia turned to me with that familiar mix of pity and condescension. Still running that little coffee shop? The Wild Vine Cafe, I corrected her quietly. Yes, I am. Still serving coffee. Sophia laughed, sharing a knowing look with our cousin Diana. You know there's always a place for you at the firm if you want a real career. I stirred my mashed potatoes, remembering the meeting I'd had that morning with one of the city's biggest real estate developers. The contract I'd signed was worth more than Sophia's entire year's salary. But they didn't need to know that. Not yet. The cafe does well enough, I said mildly. Well enough to pay rent, I hope. Mom chimed in, concern etched on her face. That downtown location must be expensive. I almost smiled. If they only knew I own the entire building, and the one next to it, and most of that block. I manage, I replied. Sophia launched into a story about her latest big case, some corporate merger worth millions. Our parents hung on every word, just like they had since we were kids. Sophia, the straightest student who followed the perfect path. Elite law school, prestigious clerkship, then straight into the family firm. And me? I was the rebel who chose culinary school over law school, who used my trust fund to buy a rundown cafe instead of a luxury condo. I just wrapped up the Anderson acquisition, Sophia was saying. You should have seen their legal team scrambling when I found the loophole in their contract. Mr. Chen was so impressed, he's bringing all of his business to our firm now. I kept my face carefully neutral at the mention of James Chen. If Sophia only knew who really controlled most of his real estate holdings. I just don't understand, Mom said later, cornering me in the kitchen as I helped with dishes. You're smart, Emma. You could have had everything Sophia has. Why waste your life serving coffee? I dried a crystal wine glass, thinking about my morning schedule for tomorrow. Not everyone wants to be a lawyer, Mom. But you're capable of so much more. She lowered her voice. Look at your sister, designer clothes, luxury car, that gorgeous penthouse apartment. Don't you want that kind of success? I thought about my own penthouse, the one I bought last month under one of my holding companies, the one with a better view than Sophia's. I'm happy with my choices, I said simply. Mom shook her head. I just worry about your future. The cafe business is so unstable. What happens when you want to start a family? How will you provide? I bit back a laugh, thinking about my diverse investment portfolio and the string of properties I'd quietly acquired over the past 5 years. The cafe had just been the beginning, my front door into the world of downtown real estate. Later that night, as everyone gathered their coats to leave, Sophia cornered me by the door. Hey, I meant what I said about the firm, she said, her voice carrying that elder sister authority she perfected since childhood. Dad would create a position for you in a heartbeat. You could start in corporate law, maybe work your way up. Thanks, I cut her off, but I'm good where I am. She frowned, perfectly plucked eyebrows drawing together. Emma, be serious. You can't serve lads forever. Don't you want to make something of yourself? Oh, which she only knew. I made something of myself all right, something much bigger than anyone in this family suspected. Tomorrow morning would prove that. I should go, I said, checking my watch. Early morning at the cafe. Right, Sophia smirked. Those coffee beans won't grind themselves. I drove home to my real office, hidden in plain sight above the cafe. While my family thought I spent my days steaming milk and making change, I'd built an empire of my own. The cafe was just the public face, the piece of me they could see and mock. Behind it lay a web of real estate holdings, strategic investments, and carefully crafted contracts that would soon reshape downtown. Unlocking my office, I settled behind my desk and opened the file marked Chen Acquisitions. Tomorrow morning, James Chen would walk into my cafe, not as Sophia's client, but as my business partner. He'd been helping me buy up properties through various shell companies for years, keeping my identity hidden even from his own lawyers, including my sister. I pulled out the final contract, the one that would consolidate all my downtown holdings under a single management company. The one that would finally reveal who really controlled half of the city's most valuable real estate. My phone buzzed. A text from Sophia. Dinner was fun. Bill, Mr. Chen mentioned he might stop by your cafe tomorrow. Try not to embarrass me. He's our biggest client. I smiled, setting my phone aside without replying. Tomorrow would certainly be interesting. The contract was straightforward. My various holding companies would merge into a single entity, Harrison Capital Group. The name was a bit of family irony I couldn't resist. As I reviewed the paperwork one last time, I thought about my sister's smug smile at dinner, my mother's concerned lectures, my father's dismissive attitude toward my little coffee shop. They had no idea that while they were focused on law firm politics and courtroom drama, I'd been quietly building something far bigger. 5 years of careful planning, strategic acquisitions, and hidden ownership were about to pay off. Tomorrow, James Chen would sign the final papers, and my family would learn that the daughter they'd written off as a simple barista actually owned more of downtown than their precious law firm could ever dream of handling. The morning after Thanksgiving, I arrived at the Wild Vine Cafe earlier than usual. My manager, Kate, was already there, setting up for what she thought would be a normal day. "The special meeting room is ready," she said, handing me a coffee. Though I still don't understand why Mr. Chen wants to meet in a cafe instead of his office. I smiled, taking a sip. Sometimes the best deals happen in unexpected places. At precisely 9 a.m., James Chen walked through the door. Despite being one of the city's most powerful real estate developers, he dressed simply in a black sweater and slacks. That was one thing I'd always appreciated about him. No pretense, just business. "Good morning, Ms. Harrison," he said warmly. Then, loudly enough for others to hear, "Could I get a vanilla latte?" I played along, heading behind the counter to make his drink personally. We perfected this routine over the years, me the humble cafe owner, him the casual customer. Nobody ever suspected we were orchestrating million-dollar deals over coffee. As I steamed the milk, the cafe's door chimed again. I looked up to see Sophia striding in, legal briefcase in hand. "Mr. Chen," she called out, clearly surprised to actually find him here. "I didn't expect to see you so early." James accepted his latte from me with a nod. "Ah, Miss Harrison, your sister makes the best vanilla latte in the city. Would you care to join our meeting?" Sophia blinked, glancing between us. "Meeting?" "Yes, regarding the downtown development project." He gestured to the private room at the back of the cafe. "Shall we?" I could see Sophia's mind racing, probably wondering why her biggest client was having a meeting in her sister's little coffee shop. Still, she followed us into the room, her heels clicking against the hardwood floors. The room looked deceptively simple: comfortable chairs, a solid wooden table, warm lighting. Only the small camera in a corner, ready to record the signing, hinted at something more significant. "I'll need another witness," James said, pulling out a thick contract. "Perhaps your sister could join us." Sophia's perfect composure slipped slightly. "Emma?" "Oh no, she runs the cafe. She doesn't need to be involved in legal matters." James raised an eyebrow. "On the contrary, she's quite essential to this meeting." I sat down at the head of the table, enjoying the growing confusion on my sister's face. "Actually, Sophia, you're the one who doesn't need to be here. But since you are, you might as well witness something interesting." The door opened again, and my father walked in, followed by 2 other partners from Harrison and Associates. They must have been meeting nearby and seen Sophia enter. "What's going on here?" Dad demanded. "Sophia, why are you meeting with Mr. Chen in a cafe?" Before she could answer, James spoke up. "Actually, I invited everyone here. It seemed fitting to sign these papers where it all began." "Where what began?" Sophia asked. I opened my laptop, pulling up the presentation I prepared. The consolidation of Harrison Capital Group's downtown holdings, currently valued at just over $300 million. The room went silent. Dad's face paled as he looked at the screen, which showed a map of downtown with highlighted properties, blocks and blocks of prime real estate. Harrison Capital Group, he whispered. My company, I said calmly. Though you might know some of its subsidiaries, Wildvine Properties, Azure Development, Crown Point Investments. Sophia practically fell into her chair. Those are all the properties we've been handling contracts for. The ones owned by Mr. Chen's investment groups. Not exactly, James corrected her. Those properties belong to your sister. I've merely been helping her acquire them quietly over the years. That's impossible, Dad sputtered. Emma runs a cafe. She couldn't possibly. I pulled out my own copy of the contract. The cafe was just the beginning. When I bought this building 6 years ago, I saw an opportunity. Downtown was undervalued, fragmented. Nobody realized how much potential was being wasted. While you were all busy mocking my little coffee shop, I continued. I was meeting investors, analyzing property values, and slowly piecing together the largest private real estate portfolio in the city. Sophie grabbed the contract, her legal training kicking in as she scanned the documents. Her face went from skeptical to shocked to something close to awe. This is worth hundreds of millions, she whispered. You own half of downtown. More than half, actually, James added. Your sister has quite a talent for seeing value where others don't. Rather like buying a rundown cafe and turning it into the cornerstone of an empire. Dad sank into a chair, his face ashen. Why didn't you tell us? Would you have believed me? I asked quietly. You were also convinced I was wasting my potential. It was easier to let you think that while I built something on my own terms. But you serve coffee, Sophie stammered. You wear an apron. You? I wear many things, I cut her off. Sometimes an apron, sometimes a business suit. The difference is, I never needed everyone to see the suit to know my own worth. James pulled out his pen. Shall we make it official? I signed first, my signature bold and clear. James followed, then dated his signature with a flourish. Just like that, Harrison Capital Group became the largest consolidated private real estate holder in the city. Congratulations, James said, shaking my hand. Though I must say, I'll miss our early morning investment meetings disguised as coffee runs. The cafe's still here, I smiled. Though I might need to expand given how many lawyers might suddenly develop a taste for our lats. Later that evening, after the shock had worn off and the family had retreated to process this new reality, I sat in my office above the cafe. The city lights twinkled beyond my window, my city in many ways. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Can we talk? Over coffee, maybe? I looked down at my cafe, still bustling with evening customers. The place where everyone thought I was just scraping by, when in reality, I was building an empire one cup at a time. Sure, I texted back. I know a great little place downtown. I hear the owner's doing pretty well for herself. Sometimes success doesn't look like what others expect. Sometimes it wears an apron and serves coffee while quietly buying up the building next door. And sometimes the best revenge isn't proving others wrong. It's proving yourself right. I closed my laptop and headed downstairs. Tomorrow the newspapers would announce Harrison Capital Group's consolidation, and everyone would know the truth. But tonight, I had a cafe to run. After all, that's where the best deals happen, over a perfectly made cup of coffee, served by someone who knows exactly what they're worth.